Good afternoon, everyone. My name, of course, is Dr. Julie Two Moon. I hope you are having a most fantastic day after the 4th of July. I would expect many of you didn't have to work today, which is awesome. I'm always a big advocate of taking time off and actually enjoying ourselves. So hopefully you're resting. Hopefully you're actually doing something lovely. But I wanted to talk to you today. I see a lot out in the world. You know, I've been in medicine 20 years. I went through school, 2 degrees. I saw a million diet plans, even just with the docs that trained me. So I've seen it all. I've read most of the books, I swear. And I've tried a lot of it with patients over the years. I mean, with so many years in practice, it's easy to have experienced a lot. And what I find is that so often the prevailing theme in so many practices is, we're going to heal you by taking you off of everything you love. So, the plan is like, hey, the way you're going to heal is you'll never eat anything that you actually like or really love ever again. And every time you do eat something that you really love, you're going to feel horrifically guilty, like you just failed, like you just messed up the whole plan and it's over. And that's where a lot of practitioners are. They're like, we're going to remove everything, and they're going to give you this really restrictive list of foods and say, hey, that's your future life. And this way, not only ultimately creates some biological problems, but it also sets us up for some real deep emotional despair. And this is something that I think is extremely dangerous in the world of healing, because speaking as someone, when I was, how old was I? 14, 15. I was an anorexic. I spent like a year and a half at least, like not eating, really restricting food, because I discovered that if you did that, you got ultimate control and you could, manipulate your body to be whatever you wanted it to be. And that prevailing idea of just cut more, cut more, cut more, it resonates very much so with that place that I operated from then. And it appeared many times throughout my life. And what I found is that, having worked with so many people, that when you put people on a plan that takes them deeper and deeper into that, let's control it, like you can't eat this, you can't eat that, it triggers the same kind of emotions, even in people who haven't been down the path of eating disorders in the past. You do that in someone who has any history of eating disorders, and you're guaranteed to trigger a whole boatload of negativity and emotional trash. And even if they don't go full on back into the eating disorder, they're going to end up in a whole lot of pain and self-judgment and self-loathing and guilt. And that's one of the biggest things, because then those emotions are going to shut down their biology and they're going to go further and further into the problem. So here's one of the problems. A lot of people out there advocating these things, they fall into one of two camps. They either have never had to try to solve the problem they're talking about themselves, or they have, but they've never had to work with copious numbers of patients. And these two really matter. So when you've got people out there advocating for your health path, and they've never actually experienced the problems that you're talking about, the thing is that I find that a lot of times they're stuck in that logic space, like, but this is just how you do it, like A equals B, because they've never had to be on the receiving end of it. And then for the people, a lot of whom are actually health coaches, like I don't find as many doctors out there saying, hey, I had to cure myself of this or this, but a lot of them are health coaches who got really sick, decided to go to health coaching school, and now they're out there saying that they can help you heal, except for that they haven't had to sit face to face with patients like ever. So they know their body exceedingly well because they live in it, but they haven't ever had to actually deal with the nuances of people. So what I've learned, I've had, I counted it, like 20,000 patient hours. And what I've found is that, each of you has your own story. So you each have your own toxicities. You have your own emotional past. You have your own nutritional deficiencies. You have your own family histories. You have the stories that are in your head. You have the nuances of why your biology works the way it does. You have your own particular weaknesses. I found that in every person, there are places and organ systems that tend to be weak and others that tend to be strong. And that can vary person to person. So 2 people with the same condition, like 2 people with the same autoimmune condition, can actually have vastly different histories and stories and weak points. So even though the condition has the same symptoms and has the same lab values, They're actually coming at it from different places. And if you can't pay attention to that, you won't be able to deal with the nuances of where they are at. And this is what I see too often. And it's actually part of the thing that concerns me most in healing right now, is that we're diminishing the experience that we're all having by saying like, oh, it's so simple. You know, I did it once for myself. I'm sure I can do it for 10,000 other people. And that's just not, that ignores the divine complexity of our body and actually is going to put a lot of people in a lot of peril. So let's go back to the whole idea of avoiding copious numbers of foods for healing, because this is found in most books on autoimmune conditions, most books on inflammation. You know, they're all talking about like eliminating almost anything. I can't tell you the number of times I've had someone that has told me, you know, I was told I had to avoid wheat, dairy, corn, soy, all other gluten-containing grains, eggs, sugar, nightshades. I mean, just the list goes on. And then they tell me, and then over time they added to my list, like I couldn't eat citrus, and then I couldn't eat the alliums, I couldn't eat garlic and onions. And then, you know, pretty much they were left with this really boring list of, you know, some vegetables, maybe some berries, some meats, although sometimes then they found like, oh, and I couldn't do pork and I couldn't do chicken. And it just keeps getting more and more restrictive, to the point where people become excessively focused on doing it correctly. But that's probably not even the biggest consequence. It is one of the biggest, but because it does something to our emotional state and our mental state. But from a biological perspective, what happens on most of these diets is that you shock the system by taking away like everything. Now, here's the deal. Shocking is not the same thing as healing. So you take away everything. And what happens is most of these are also actually they're lower on the carbohydrate spectrum. A lot of them are. Some aren't. Some have a little bit more of the whole grain in terms of like brown rice, quinoa, and whatnot. But I find on the whole, it's lacking simple, easy to digest forms of carbohydrate. So what happens is when we lack that, our cortisol levels rise. Well, what do conventional docs use cortisol for? To lower your symptoms. That's why they use hydrocortisone. That's why they use it topically. That's why they give you injections of it. What are steroids? They're same derivative elements. So you've just raised your endogenous steroid production. So temporarily, you can take down these symptoms by suppressing your body's responses, because that's what happens. When your own cortisol goes up, your body responses get suppressed. And so as a result, you've initiated a cascade of events. Now, some of you may be saying, well, that sounds kind of good, except for the fact that in that higher cortisol state, in the high steroid state, your cells are functioning at less than 10% of their capacity. In the process, your liver's just stopped detoxifying. Your liver stopped converting T4 to T3, so you aren't getting active thyroid hormone. Your brain is functioning at way limited capacity, considering its favored fuel source is glucose. You're now not able to send messages through the nervous system as efficiently. You're downregulating your use of minerals and actually changing intracellular and extracellular pH. So you'll soon start to get deposits of minerals. So see, by cutting all those foods, you get a temporary boom. And then on the back end, you're just going to drop into lower and lower function states. And this will take place over time. And I've talked to so many people over the years and treated a lot who've done those huge anti-inflammatory protocols only to say, you know, I got to a point where it wasn't working and I wasn't eating anything. So I'm thinking, why do I feel so cruddy? Why am I so tired? And yet I don't get to eat anything. So when we go back to that idea, the other thing it does is it puts us into a state of really significant fear about food. So if I break it down, food is divine language. That's what it comes down to. It's a condensed form of energy. It comes from the natural world. Well, if you're eating natural world food, it comes from the natural world. It is condensed language that our body is perfectly designed to know how to use. And that really is true for all food. Now, we could have a big discussion about the pesticide issue and you know, modification of the genome, but at the base inherent principle, that is what food is. But when we start to cut and cut and cut, and then the list keeps expanding, and now you have fewer and fewer foods, and you're relegated to like rice and poached fish and, you know, a little bit of berries, and you're like, this is boring, but oh, I guess it's better than not feeling poorly. The fact is that you've just developed a fear relationship with our primary source of medicine. Let's take the Chinese, for example. The Chinese eat everything. I mean, like when you study Chinese medicine like I have, and you take the dietetics class, you hear about things that as a person born and raised in the West, like I was like, they eat that? But they do. They eat everything. And then they eat every part of whatever they're going to eat. And they all are there for different reasons. Like you might eat a particular kind of turtle because of its medicine value. And then you might eat, you know, a toad over here and this root over here. So they don't exclude anything. They don't use an exclusionary principle as it relates to food because they get the concept that all food is condensed energy of the universe. Like that's what it is, and it's there to heal you, and you can use it to those ends. But cutting and cutting and cutting is opposite the goal of healing, which is to raise your capacity in your body to grow stronger. So as a result, you know, they're in line with this whole natural world model of our body is in the universe, so we might as well eat in accordance with that. And these other plans are opposite that because they're sort of treating it like the natural world is scary and it's created our bad situation, so let's cut everything in association with it. Now, the thing is that people put you on these diets, in truth, because they get a shock and awe effect. Oh my gosh, I cut out everything and look, it doesn't hurt right now. They know they're not reaching the cell layer. They know they're not solving it permanently. Sorry, there's people mowing the lawn outside. They know they're not changing that deeper picture. But because they don't know how to solve that, they're going with what they can do to create an immediate effect. And then what I see happen time and time again is when that starts to peter out, because it does eventually, because it either peters out because A, your body overrode it. Because look, if you've got complex biological disruption, you take out some foods, eventually your body, you see it's still continuing on that path. Eventually it's going to come back. Or you got tired of eating nothing, and you got tired of the fact that when you go on vacation, like you can't have an ice cream because it's toxic and you're going to pay for it for, you know, the whole rest of the week. Or you can't have that piece of chocolate, you can't handle that brownie, you can't do any of those things because otherwise you're going to pay for it forever. Eventually though, you get tired of that and you will eat those other foods, because I've also seen that time and time again. Because unless you're into pain and unless you're into self-deprecation, or you're one of those people, the rare people, but you guys do exist, that don't care about food, that you literally will just eat anything every day, day in, day out, you're not even interested in it. Unless you fit into one of those categories, it is going to fail eventually. Now, what happens next is that these same practitioners are like, oh, and now it's just that we have to treat your adrenals. Okay, now we have to treat your gut. Okay, now we have to treat your this. Okay, now we have to give you hormones. And they just keep adding on problems. Because the fact is that they never knew how to solve the original problem, so they just keep tacking them on. I can't tell you the number of clients that I've helped that they've already gone through that. They've spent thousands of dollars with people who just kept going, oh, now it's this. Oh, now it's this. And it never ended. And the practitioner, if they were queried, would be like, oh, yeah. Like sometimes this happens, we'll just have to treat like 10 more things. Really? That means you have no idea where the root is. You have no idea how to find it. You have no idea how to solve it. And this is the biggest problem in medicine today, because it's dangerous. Not only are we not healing, but the aberrant relationship with food is setting up a whole lot of negativity. And many people are becoming so fearful of food that they've really stopped enjoying it. They've stopped enjoying our primary medicine. Not only that, but when we have thoughts that food is bad, our body hears, oh my God, it's bad. It can't differentiate that you're okay with that rice and poached fish and just not okay with, I don't know, the ice cream and the pizza. It can't differentiate that because you've looped this big negative message around food because that's what you've been taught. And the truth is that our body is really, really, really magical. And your mind and thoughts are incredibly powerful, and you can manipulate the function of your cells with your emotions and your thoughts. And so the more that we have a negative relationship with food, the more likely it is that we're going to initiate more and more and more negative reactions in our body, including inflammation. So one of the things we have to do is we have to have a better relationship with food. You need to be able to feel like you can eat and enjoy it, that like sweet things aren't off the table, you know, that salty things aren't off the table. If you want to have some French fries, that's okay. You need to be able to exist in that space and have your body be able to heal because you understand the relationship. And this is about understanding where you come from, what your body patterns are, how your cells are functioning, and being able to look at your body data to know what your body's responses are and then match the food accordingly. The other thing is this though, the stronger you get, the more that cell layer heals, the more resilient you are. So when you do go out to dinner with friends and you eat something you would totally not eat the rest of the week, it doesn't tank you forever because you actually have resiliency in your biology, because that's what's not being established by just avoiding everything. It's like the mom who sprays disinfectant like all over their kid. The studies show that that doesn't improve our immunity. In fact, it makes it worse. Avoiding everything doesn't improve the long-term responsiveness of our system. It makes it worse because we're not building vitality. So we need to be able to learn how to use food as the fun medicine that it is, the miracle that it is, and be able to appreciate that, then establish a great mental, emotional relationship with it so we can actually feel like we're free to eat according to what provides the best potential energy in our body, the best cellular response, you know, the best potential of healing, and then to trust our body that it's capable of working with it. Because that's the other thing that's missing. So many of these mantras are about your body is messed up. It doesn't know what it's doing. We need to tell it what to do. We need to muscle it into shape. We need to control it. That model of operation is telling the most divine structure ever created that it is dumb, that it is flawed, that it makes mistakes. When in fact, we can see that our body's always done everything with extreme wisdom. It's often done exactly what we asked it to do, fatigue included, hypothyroidism included, inflammatory conditions included, because along the way we didn't realize that the messages we were telling it to enact were in fact leading us down those paths. And it's so key that we are able to resonate with that and return to that place where we capture a relationship of trust and love and the absolute divinity of our body, and then that food is something we can appreciate and love and have a great relationship with, instead of having this kind of like gutted out life is no fun relationship. That's how people heal. That's how you heal forever. That's how but you also get to do it joyfully. It's not meant to be the most arduous thing you ever do. You're supposed to feel alive and present and joyful and creative and like you're fulfilling a message of abundance in your body. And that's what healing is supposed to feel like, not this austerity move. There was a doc I used to follow years ago. Just as I finish up, there was a doc I used to follow years ago. And he truly believed that, in essence, we should give up all things that made us joyful. So when it came to diet, he thought everyone should be perfectly happy if all they ever get to eat really is steamed vegetables. That should make them perfectly happy. They should never want for more. And if they do want for more, they need to look inside and see what's wrong with them. Now, the same guy didn't believe that a happy marriage included great sex. He didn't believe that women should be having free time and go to gyms because they were setting themselves up at risk for, getting in trouble. He had all these really rigid rules where life was supposed to be about this very narrow path of extreme control. It was so sad because his other knowledge was brilliant. But this is what I mean. Like, a lot of times people just go into this place like, you should just be happy with what you have. And even though your food sucks and you barely get to eat anything, you should be grateful for it. I'm all of one for gratitude, you guys, but that's not healing. Like, that's not sustainable. I don't know anyone who's going to do that for the rest of their life. And the way that I look at it is, if you learn how to eat food in a way that you could do forever, that you love and enjoy, that you feel at peace with, then it's just food. It's not a diet. It's not, some rigid healing plan that you're going to go back to old habits afterwards. It's just something you do because you love it and you feel so good. That's what healing is. All right, guys. Blessings. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you have questions, post them in the comments. If you want to learn how to work on this in your own life and are interested in, well, what would that mean for my healing? Reach out, post a comment, set up a call. That's what we do. Blessings, guys.